Now, up until now, we've created everything from scratch, but this is really a lesson in composite work. And if you notice in composite work, it's never cut and dry. We have to use different types of methods depending on what type of image we're trying to create. So on this one, we can actually try to recreate a watercolor texture in the background, but instead, I'm going to show you how to bring in another image to get that texture quickly. So let's go ahead and open up our first asset in our donor images. So I'm going to go to File, Open, click on Donor Images, and I have a watercolor background. And we're going to go ahead and open that up. Now I'm going to take this watercolor and I'm going to bring it into my creation. And the goal here is to just create a lighter texture, kind of some interest in that foreground area. Now there's a couple different ways that we can move items over. We can click, hold, and drag, and drop, and that will automatically bring it over. Another method to bring it over, we're going to go ahead and delete that. Another method to bring it over is by hitting Control A, which selects everything. We see our ants. Control C to copy, and then we go over to our image that we want to place it in and Control V. And if we notice, that does create a whole new layer here. So I'm just going to grab this, and I want this texture to kind of fill in this foreground a little bit, but right now I have two problems. One, it doesn't fit, and two, it's overpowering. It doesn't really blend well. So let's talk about the first problem. Let's talk about it not fitting. So the shortcut key to transform something is Control T on a Windows machine or Command T on a Mac. So then I get my handlebars. So now I can drag this out to kind of fill this space. Now, I don't normally, I don't recommend dragging up and making it larger because we're going to lose resolution. But for the sake of this image where it's going to be faded out and kind of just barely a texture in the background, it's okay. So I'm going to hit Enter to lock it in. And now it's kind of in the foreground. And now we're going to talk about what else makes compositing magical in Photoshop, and those are blend modes. So over here in our layers palette, underneath this first line of icons, we have something that says normal, and normal is our current blend mode. This is this ink on top of this ink. Normal, it's not blending in any way. So we want to change the way it's blending. If we hold it down, we notice that we have all different types of blend modes. Now, each one of these has a very specific algorithm. You don't have to know them. And sometimes the fastest way to learn is to just kind of go down the line until you find one that you like. You can learn more about or teach more about these different modes as you get deeper into Photoshop. But the first time that you go into it for something like this, you probably don't want to do that. So I'm liking the way the soft light looks. So we'll go ahead and use that one there. The other option is to bring down the opacity. So the opacity is right next to our blend mode. We're going to bring that down a little bit and just, actually I think I like that better. Yeah, that just kind of blends in very nicely there. So you have two options. You can blend, or you can use your opacity until you get the look that you're looking for. Now here's our second problem. We have this very harsh edge. In my final image here, we're going to go ahead and turn this on. I'll show you. We did kind of this here. So it kind of fades into the background here. So to get that soft feathered edge, I had to do something called a mask. Now this is what it looks like. And this is kind of scary when we first start with Photoshop, but by the end of this lesson, you're going to be pretty comfortable with it. So the first thing we need to do is put that mask on here. Now, what is a mask? A mask just tells Photoshop, hide part of this image and show part of this image. So we're going to go down to the bottom of our layers palette, and our masking tool is this square with the button in the middle of it. So I call it the nuclear button. We're just going to hit it, boom, and nothing happens. to our image. But if we look over here in our palette, we can see that we now have an additional little thumbnail next to this one. Now this is our mask thumbnail and this is our image thumbnail. And right now it's white because white reveals and black conceals. What does that mean? Right now, white is showing everything underneath. So if I want to hide part of this image, I have to paint on this mask with black. How do I know I'm on a mask? Because you're going to have the little frame around the edges here. Do you see that little frame around the edge? If you try to grab your paintbrush and start painting on this one, then you're going to paint right on your image. Oh no, you don't want to do that. We want to paint on the mask. So I'm going to click on the mask. And don't worry, I know this is a lot of concepts at the beginning, but we're going to go over them again and again and again until you're comfortable with them. So I'm going to grab a brush. So I'm going to hit B for brush. And I have a pretty big brush, but I want it to be even bigger. So I'm going to come up to my tool option bar. And I'm just going to crank this thing up a little bit bigger. I'll pull it out here and see, maybe even bigger than that. Oh, too big. And then I also want it to be a very fuzzy brush. So my hardness, if I have it on 1, it's going to be a very hard edge. So I'm going to take it all the way to the other direction to 0. So I have a big fuzzy brush. Now once I'm out here, I can make my brush size bigger by using the square bracket to the right. Or I can make it smaller using the left square bracket. So I can kind of play with this a little bit. Okay, so I said black conceals and white reveals. Well, right now I have black and white paint. And if you don't have black and white paint, all you have to do is hit D for default and then X to switch them around. So right now I'm painting with black. Remember, if I'm on my image and I start painting with black, something very bad is going to happen. I'm going to actually paint on my image. Oops. So if I start painting right on my image, oh no, look at that. We don't want that. We don't want that at all because we're painting on the image. We want to paint on the mask. When I paint on the mask and I come paint with black in that same place, watch what happens. The image starts to disappear in that area. Now I'm going to hit Control Z to undo that because I don't want it to fade out quite that far. And I'm just going to very lightly paint over that edge so it's nice and fuzzy. And then I'm going to come soften up this edge by painting on it. If you look over here at my mask, see where the black is, the image is still there. I can actually turn this mask on and off and the image is still there. I'm not deleting the pixels. I'm just hiding those pixels. Now this will start to make more sense as we move on through this lesson. You'll start to understand these masks as you work with them more and more. But for right now, just make those edges a little bit fuzzy and you'll have a nice base for your image.